So I went and saw Oppenheimer over the weekend, like millions of other people did. And in general, I thought the movie was really good. I first read Kai Bird's book, American Prometheus, which the movie is based off of. And I was so inspired by Oppenheimer's life in that book that I decided to read another documentary by Ray Monk called Robert Oppenheimer, A Life Inside the Center. And there's one scene in particular in Oppenheimer's life that I think Christopher Nolan chose to not include in the film that I really wish he had, because as somebody who's read a ton about Oppenheimer, it just feels like this life event was really, really significant and a huge part of Oppenheimer's personality and just his personal trajectory. And it happened in his childhood, and it's a pretty upsetting incident that took place during Oppenheimer's stay at summer camp. He wrote a letter to his parents telling them that he was getting along with the other boys at camp and that he was learning a lot about sex. And this prompted his parents to come to the camp, and they were enraged and demanded that the camp director do something about the spread of smut among boys. And I'm quoting the Ray Monk's book directly. And so the camp director duly announced that disciplinary measures would be taken against those caught telling dirty stories, and the boys sought their revenge on the telltale, who was Oppenheimer, who betrayed them. One evening, while taking a walk, Oppenheimer was captured and dragged to an ice house where he was stripped, his buttocks and genitals were painted green, and he was tied up and left alone. They, as it were, crucified him. Despite the attack, Oppenheimer remained at camp for the rest of the summer. I don't know how Robert stuck out those remaining weeks. Koenig said not many boys would have or could have, but Robert did, and it must have been hell for him. It is pretty surprising that Christopher Nolan chose to not include such a traumatic childhood event, especially when, childhood traumas are, that's something you're always looking for when you're trying to kind of find the deeper meaning in a character as paradoxical and enigmatic as Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. Clearly, Cillian Murphy was aware of this. In interviews, he clearly did a lot of research on Oppenheimer's background, and his performance was really, really exuded the energy that you pick up on in these biographies. So the film is informed by the knowledge of this event, but when you think about what happened to Oppenheimer later in his life, especially in the second half of the film when he is, crucified politically by his political rivals, you can't help but feel like there's such an obvious parallel here. And not only that, just so much about his personality. What kind of person would be drawn to an opportunity like being the director of the Manhattan Project, a job that so many people or so few people were qualified for, and probably so few people wanted. And it just seemed like Oppenheimer from his childhood on was doing everything he could to assert himself as a masculine, dominant kind of alpha presence after feeling, so pushed down by his peers in his young age. If you want to do more reading on Oppenheimer, really recommend Ray Monk's book as well as Kai Bird's book, but also definitely go see the film. I thought it was great. It's crazy to think about the man who brought atomic weapons into the world also had such a traumatic childhood event, and it does make you think about the consequences of bullying and how the dynamics in our personalities that form from bullying can last with us our entire lives.